Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and thank you for joining me here today as we discuss the brand new set Dominaria United from a budget perspective. And just to get the broad strokes out of the way, I think this is a really good set, full of good tools, and I think the limited environment is maybe going to be a little challenging for budget players, but I think it's going to be a good one overall, and definitely one of the better standard sets that we have seen. The last Streets of New Capenna left a lot to be desired, and I think Dominaria United will not disappoint on that front. Of course, this budget perspective video is just the first in our Dominaria United coverage. Tomorrow, you can look forward to our comprehensive codes video dropping, and then continue to look forward to topics like Mastery Pass evaluation, jump in tier list, midweek magic, and of course, budget decks and limited focus of both quick draft and sealed environments. So be sure to stay tuned. But before we get into all that, I am super excited at the prospect of getting to 500 subs because that is going to allow me to do a lot of really cool community building stuff for y'all over on EtherHub. So take just a moment, do all those YouTube things to support the channel, and I won't have to be awkward about it. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. And before we jump into this set's budget perspective review, I wanted to take just a minute to address why I don't do traditional preview spoiler season. And mostly this comes down to two facts. The first being that most content creators that I see spend the large portion of their time just reading you cards and then very little actual analysis of what those cards mean for you as an individual player and about the choices that you make. And while I am nearly certain that you don't need me to read you cards, I think the far more important thing here is about the choices that we make, particularly as budget players. Because when it comes to Rares and Mythics, we pretty much get what we get. And even budget players are going to end up with pretty much a play set of all the commons of any given set that they were around to draft for. And that means that most of our choices, the meaningful choices that we make, are going to come down to the uncommons. And we want to make sure that we are making good choices there. Now, if you are looking for that card by card analysis from a content creator that's going to do more than the whopping tell you that Rares and Mythics are good, I personally watch Deb over at MtG. He gets a little rambly, but he seems like a really nice guy. I don't know him at all. He doesn't know me. But he does have some really good insights on the Rares and Mythics in particular. The very first thing I want to say about the set is a public service announcement for those of you out there who are using a Johnny as your avatar. Just be aware that a Johnny story has taken a somewhat unexpected turn that you might want to look into, and it might affect whether you want him representing you in the game or not. But typically I don't spend a lot of time and concern on the story aspects, so do what you like. Now, I've told you already that I think this set is really good, but what I didn't tell you is that it's legend, wait for it, dairy. That's right. This set is more legendary than we expected. I think we all knew that there was going to be a good amount of legendary creatures and a strong possibility of legendary matters cards. But what I, for one, did not expect was the variety and potential behind those cards. Not only are you obviously going to want these Legendary Matters cards for your Brawl decks in both Standard and Historic, but there is a very strong possibility that a Legendary deck will emerge for Standard And based on the number of uncommons that we see, not only in this set, but in the recent standard sets, and most likely in the very next set at the least, there is a strong possibility that that Legendary Matters deck will actually be pretty budget friendly. Domain is one of the only mechanical issues of Dominaria United that I'm going to be discussing today. Again, because I don't think you need me to read you stuff off the internet. But I did mention the domain mechanic and the potential budget deck in my recent last word on rotation video about a week and a half ago. In there, I talked about the domain deck, if there was going to be one, and the mechanic in general. Domain was either going to be kind of busted or underpowered. And, well, at this point now, having seen all the previews, I can pretty assuredly say it's not busted. So what this means for us is a domain deck may not be worth building, and if it is, it probably will get better in alchemy, because I'm pretty sure they're going to try and revamp some of the cards and boost the power level on this mechanic, probably as early as the October alchemy reset. And of course, just by its nature of potentially being better in alchemy, means it's a deck that some of you won't be interested in. And of course, let's not forget there are already cards in Standard, like Cartographer's Survey, that care about lands, but not necessarily basic lands. So they can become very cheaty in helping you enable Domain. And of course, it really wouldn't take very much over the course of the next 2 years to see a very budget-friendly card that pushes Domain back into high relevance, particularly for budget players. And boy, do we need to talk about blue. It got an incredible tool package, counter spells, bounce effects, really just about everything you would want to be a masterful blue player. In fact, this is the best I have seen blue in years, really since back in the day when Arena started. And honestly, it wasn't that blue was that much better then, it was just the other colors really didn't have their act together either, so they were pretty lacking. So we can pretty much count on blue as a whole in all the decks using blue to really go up a notch over the next, say, 6 months or so. There is even a possibility to see a blue-based control deck, probably either in white or black, for the first time in budget arena history. This in part is due to the uptick in blue that we're seeing in this set, as well as the width and breadth of board sweepers that we're seeing on rotating standard at an unprecedented level. Now, don't get me wrong, white is still king of the budget color hill right now. Our initial 4 best budget player decks had 2 that were very strongly white, that being Mono White Life and Blue White Skies. Those decks are going to continue to be towards the top of the best decks budget players can be running right now. But we're going to see more differentiation between the 2 decks thanks to new cards that we're seeing in this set. There is going to be less overlap between these, and the decks are going to be more distinctive and I believe more functional. Blue White Life is going to get even leaner and meaner with an even lower mana curve. I think really we can afford to top out now at 3, definitely not more than 1 card needed at 4. Blue White Skies is going to get a lot less clunky and a lot less dependent on its 3-drop slot. And it seems that all the colors in this set are, and I quote, pretty solid. And don't take my word for it, this is a quote coming from Nikolai Bolas, one of the premier drafters on YouTube. a person with which I have no affiliation, but a great deal of professional respect for. He puts the color order roughly like this, with red being at the top and green being the worst. But again, he caveats this by saying that all of the colors are pretty solid, which I interpret as being pretty playable. This ranking is actually really good news for us as budget players because, of course, the domain deck that we're interested in playing is centered very solidly around green. Defenders is another deck that I'm going to be watching this season. And really, this deck is kind of centered around two artifact cards, oddly enough. One of which is a tutor, the other of which is one of the two primary offensive possibilities because we like big butts and we cannot lie. The other defender cards are pretty evenly spread across white, blue, and black at 2 each in the commons and uncommons. Green, of course, getting only one that I'm not sure is going to make the final cut in the deck. And red, of course, gets nothing, and it likes it because red's color identity in this set is all about aggression, and a defensive creature just doesn't really fit that. And let's not forget, there's already an awful lot of creatures with Defender in the current standard/alchemy rotation that very easily contribute to this deck, and we've got another 2 years worth of deck releases that may continue to add to this deck archetype and make it even better. Now, when it comes to winners and losers in existing budget archetypes, really our biggest winner is blue-red spells. It is definitely on the rise. And the biggest question here is how high? And that's a question I usually ask about Snoop Dogg. This might even be the basis for the Defender deck that we were just talking about, as there is a lot of overlap between the spells concepts and blue-red defenders. Although in truth, the more natural and apparent archetype for Defender is blue-black because of the black finisher that exists within Dominaria United. So we'll just have to see what direction this deck is going to ultimately take, but it is definitely going places. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got strength in numbers, which is definitely taking a nosedive. Diversity is usually a great thing, but this deck is suffering from an overabundance of it. Green-white tokens is now dealing with humans, citizens, and soldiers. Got me saying, oh my, like George Takei. All this diversity is going to make it really hard to unify a green-white tokens deck with any kind of lord or combat trick, and you're left really with just more generic overrun style effects, which tend to be not only less synergistic, but a little less successful. All in all, this deck becomes increasingly disappointing. Now, while this set drops on Arena today, September 1st, the real date that budget players need to keep in mind is September 16th, and that's when this new Dominaria United set becomes quick draftable. So if you're playing under my minimum levels of play budgeting system, you need to keep about 5,000 gold out of your current balance available to help you do drafts. That, along with your daily play over the next 4 weeks, should give you enough gold to hit 9 drafts for 45,000 gold total. Any other gold that you have at the moment, you should very strongly consider in investing in the new Dominaria United jump-in packs. Of course, you can't choose to just get those packs. They just become part of the pool. But more than likely, that is where you want to spend this gold, and any limited time that you have over the next couple weeks in developing your collection through jump in, because it is the only thing more efficient than drafting. At the time that I'm recording this, we don't know anything about the jump in packs that are coming, other than the names, and that there is going to be 10 packs, 2 of each color. But my suspicion is that we got this information yesterday at the time that you're watching this, which means right now, as you're watching this, I am somewhere drinking coffee and figuring out the new Jumpstart packs and creating the tier list that will be coming out in the very near future. One of the questions I've been getting very consistently lately is, how do you know when to stop doing the jump-in events? And the short answer is, you kind of got to pay attention to your rares, because the reason jump-in is more efficient is because of the 2 rares that you're guaranteed to get, with the possibility of mythic upgrades. But if there's no more rares that you want or need, there's no reason to do jump-in just to get shitty rares. So if you don't really understand what I'm talking about, you owe it to yourself to watch my Truth About Jump-In video that came out sometime last quarter. Definitely search that up. You owe it to yourself to watch it and have a better understanding of how this limited environment affects your ability to efficiently grow your collection. And don't forget, the brand new comprehensive codes video is going to drop first thing tomorrow morning. And, well, to put it simply, we've got bomb videos dropping just about every day for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So make sure you're subbed to the channel so you don't miss a thing. And with all that having been said, don't forget, smash that like button like Ronnie J would. And no matter where in the world you are watching this from, I hope you have a magical day. And until next time, I'll see you in the arena.